Hello and welcome to the Simuldub Saints, your guide to seasonal anime dubs. I'm your host, Emo Kid, and with me as always is my trusty co-host.
Hello, I am Archangel, lover of cat girls.
You've been listening to our theme song, Wherever I Go, from friend of the podcast, Ampren. Please check out their awesome music, link in the description.
And this episode has been sponsored by the FICSIT Corporation. More about them at the end.
Well, a little bit of house cleaning before we get into the news here. Wow. Our last episode, you guys really came out swinging. We've had more views on that than anything else we've ever done. Thank you all so very much. I'm honestly at a loss for words. 200 views at the time of this recording and climbing. More than double our best other video. So thank you all. Glad you enjoyed our conversation about Wistoria. Sorry we missed you guys last week. Ark was on a business trip and I was grieving a lost pet.
Yeah.
So. It kind of just confluenced. One or the other we probably would have found a way around. Both of them were just like, we'll just come back and here we are.
Yeah, so if anyone didn't know it, Arizona is fucking hot.
Yes, Arizona indeed hot. That's where my parents live.
Well, I went down there to do some business with some very, very lovely people. But why they insist on headquartering in Phoenix, I will never understand.
It is the land of the heat. I mean, they're in Phoenix, and the fire of the Phoenix keeps it hot. But anyway, we actually have quite a bit of news. Almost like we missed a week. The first one that makes me incredibly, incredibly excited is Dragon Ball Daima, the last piece of Dragon Ball storytelling that Akira Toriyama ever worked on. Will begin its stream on Crunchyroll on October 11th. Now, that is, of course, going to be the subtitled release, but I don't expect the dub's going to be that far behind. I have heard through sources, quote-unquote, that the dub is already being worked on, so I don't know how fast the dub will be, but it's not going to be super long. It's not going to be like Dragon Ball Super where it took them 2 years. So, I imagine we'll be seeing that one pretty fast.
Indeed. Well, it's Dragon Ball. There's always a market for it.
Oh, yes. I mean, I might even get you to watch that one with me.
Oh, God, help me.
Hey, you never had to watch Dragon Ball Super. I just made you watch the Broly movie.
Sure, you did not make me watch GT, so... You
know. I wouldn't make my worst enemy watch GT.
And I now welcome the sweet embrace of death. Oh, God.
Lord.
So, yeah, guys, a little bit of a side anecdote, some deep lore here. So, as you all know from previous episodes, LK made me watch while we lived together all of Dragon Ball and all of Dragon Ball Z in order. And so, me as someone who's not a shonen person, not particularly a Dragon Ball person, I've seen all this stuff. So, when Dragon Ball Z Abridged came out, and I'm watching it by myself, and there's the part where Vegeta the Dragon Balls get stolen on Namek, he just goes completely batshit insane, and so they did this great thing where he's screaming and people progressively further away in space are hearing it, and then eventually in time, so the future Trunks are hearing, and he's like, "Daddy?" And I'm like, first of all, I almost died laughing, but secondly, I realized, holy shit, I actually got that.
You're
what
welcome.
have you done to me, LK?
I have made you better. Or worse, depending on your point of view, I suppose.
I feel like a recovering Scientologist. Anyway. Okay, it's not that bad, but...
if you never said, "Oh, God, screw this, I'm done," I'm like, alright. But you seem to enjoy it.
Well, didn't really have the heart, and it wasn't bad. It was just mostly boring.
The biggest victim of Dragon Ball, the scenery.
True. Very true. Oh, goodness.
But, my hat's off to Akira Toriyama. Thank you for this last gift, Sensei. Which is funny to say, given today's topic.
Indeed. Well,
Ah.
I have to think that Toriyama-sama was probably at least this much fun to be around, albeit in a very different way, I would imagine.
From all accounts, he was a very private person, but the friends he did have loved him greatly. I think I said this when we lost him, but the thing that hit me the hardest was Toyotaro, who's the heir apparent. He's the man who's been drawing the Dragon Ball Super manga and a lot of the creative force behind Dragon Ball Super. Not the entire, of course, Toriyama did a lot himself. When Toriyama died, he just said, I'm going to miss seeing you. And it's just like, that broke my heart. Like, that just, oh, man. But, I mean, there were a lot of people who were that way. Ichiro Oda, the One Piece guy, said something very similar, because they were also friends. So, oof. That void is never going to really be filled, but we do have some amazing Dragon Ball coming our way, and more so than any other form of Dragon Ball since the 90s, Toriyama was very involved in this. So this is his last gift.
Excellent. Yep, and as old voices fall still, new voices take up the song.
Indeed.
Whatever.
Speaking of songs, Bye Bye Earth has confirmed Season 2 for next year, 2025, and I am dancing in the sky because I love this show. I appear to be one of the few, but I love it.
Yeah, we discussed it. It's an acquired taste, very much like Lewis Carroll. It's his work itself.
I did get some insight when I showed it to J-Mac, actually.
Oh, yeah, he's good for that.
He actually said that it was not that hard for him to understand. However, it explains itself very quickly and it's easy to miss. That's what he had to say about it. So that makes sense.
I think he's just smarter than me, which...
Well,
it's not all that surprising.
It makes sense to me too, and I don't think I'm smarter than you.
On some things you really are.
Oh, well, thank you.
And on other things I think I'm smarter than you. Don't ask me to break it down.
No, I mean, that's just being human right there.
Right.
I would actually never dispute that. But we have fun things to enjoy, at least. Speaking of, again... Bleach, the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, Part 3 anime premieres on October 5th, just before Dragon Ball Daima. We got Part 1 2 years ago and Part 2 last year. It has been an absolute blast to get back to Bleach. I never got around to reading the 1,000-Year Blood War manga, and from what I'm hearing, I win. Because not only is this adaptation amazing, it's a director's cut. Because the manga was kind of... Tite Kubo was more or less done, and he just kind of finished it. But in coming back to it, they've added scenes, they've added context. This is the way to experience 1,000-Year Blood War, and I love it. I think it's great. Bleach has not been this good since the Soul Society arc.
Yeah, for me, it lost whatever interest I had for it after that point, but...
I may have to try this one with you. Not like a serious commitment, just to see what you think of it at some point. No rush. We have so much stuff we're watching. Speaking of things, Tower of God Season 2 has confirmed a new opening and ending song, sung by Stray Kids. Now, it doesn't say this, but it does say it's for the Workshop Battle storyline. To me, this means it's continuing into the next season. Why else create a new intro and ending?
Yeah, because, I mean, with the ending, it hasn't... Unless they're going to keep the same animation, they haven't finished running through the revelations there yet.
Not yet.
So, unless they're going to set the same ending to a different song, which would be...
Very odd choice, but I mean,
they
could. There's still several episodes left for the Simuldub for us, which is where we're at, so... They could easily finish that before we get to this.
Yeah, well, if Your and Dragon's reaction is representative, they'd be fools not to keep the train going.
Oh, yeah, no, I Tower of God Season 2, we're going to get to it eventually. I'm definitely talking about that with you at some point. Especially given your interesting thoughts on Season 1 versus Season 2. But, oh my god.
I'm moderately less bored, but it's still not a me show.
Yeah, well, we're through episode 8, and there'll be 12. So there's 4 more episodes for us for this core, as it were.
We're going to want to get some guests for that, partly because we've got some people who are really into
I know
that.
someone who's going to join us. Pretty sure we're getting J-Mac for that.
Yeah. Also see if Dragon wants in. I mean,
I would love to have Dragon aboard. He has an open invite for this entire podcast, but he doesn't seem to want it.
Okay, fair enough.
But he is always welcome. If you are listening, Dragon, you are always welcome to join us.
Yeah, and this is something where I think you probably have more to say about it than I do. My thoughts on it, spoiler alert, folks, boil down to, hey, the protagonist is less whiny this time.
I think he has a good reason to be less whiny.
Right, but that's really my only real
Yeah, I had a feeling you'd like Jaw walking on, and I seem to have been right about that. Anyway, our last piece of news is HIDIVE announced the Oshinoko Season 2 dubcast, and the dub started back on Friday the 13th.
Shout out to Jason Voorhees.
Wow. We've definitely watched it.
It's Oshinoko. It's good. Go watch it.
Yes. I would go through the cast list with y'all, but it's almost entirely returning cast. If you watch Season 1, you know what you're in for. But I will link it in the description if you want to go look at the cast list. It's there. It's good. Very good. I actually watched the first episode subbed back in July when I was out at Anime Expo down at V-Lord's place in Los Angeles with V-Lord and Sakaki and Sketch, who's been on this podcast, and Manga Alerts, and we all had a blast watching that sub. Rewatching with dub with you and Dragon, it's just as good, if not better.
Indeed.
But that does it for our news. News is no longer allowed on this podcast.
Oh, dear.
Because we are no longer allowed in another world. And Ark, I'm going to have to absolutely rely on you for some of this because this plot goes kind of all over the place.
Yeah, okay. So let's start with what this is based on. So if you watched our season preview episode, then you'll have already heard me for this. You're going to probably want to make a chapter out of this, LK, so people can skip. But okay.
Sure.
So let me tell you guys, and this is me basically, quite literally here reading off of Wikipedia. Let me tell you guys about a man named Osamu Dezai, who is better, it's his pen name. His real name was Shuji Tsushima, excuse me.
He's a ghost of Tsushima?
Yeah, so yeah, I was going to say I should know how to pronounce that, but apparently his pen name was Osamu Dezai. He lived from 1909 to 1948. So he was born at the turn of the 20th century and lived through World War II. And he was a great and well-known Japanese novelist. Some of his works are considered modern-day classics of Japanese literature. The two that are listed at the very beginning of his article are The Setting Sun and No Longer Human. No idea what they're about. So, basically, he was a very insightful, very well-known author. From what little I can gather from this very cursory research, he seems to be to occupy a similar place in the Japanese zeitgeist to somebody like F. Scott Fitzgerald in the American zeitgeist, which is to say he lived and wrote in roughly the same period of time, although I'm sure his work is very, very different because Japan and the United States were very different countries at that time, 1920s and 30s and 40s, much more so even than they are now. Far more so than they are now. I'm not going to go into that, but yeah. Now, the really relevant thing for our purposes is he famously died by a lover's suicide, which I know YouTube doesn't like that word, but it's in context here, and it's, you can figure out what that is just from the term. So, in this show, it starts with that, and they're going to go do the thing, and he gets isekai'd. I forget exactly what happened. Does he get? I think he actually there's a mix up, and he actually gets accidentally truck-kunned, right? And his girlfriend doesn't. Is that? Am I remembering correctly?
Could be wrong, but I think you're right.
I remember him getting truck-kunned because it was like a vintage truck.
Yes, it was a vintage truck, and we all died laughing because it's
Right.
like, of course he's truck-kunned. Of course.
And or actually, I think they were on their way and they both got truck-kunned.
That's
if I remember
right.
correctly. That's right, because
right.
his girlfriend Sachan, I forget why they were going to do this instead of getting married, but whatever.
I don't think it was elaborated on.
I don't think it matters. This show is
no, I don't think it matters.
If our attitude hasn't made it clear, this show is bonkers.
The show is beautifully bonkers.
And so they're all set to go, die together and so forth, and they get truck-kunned. And he wakes up in a temple with a very sweet but kind of ditzy elf named Annette, welcoming him as an otherworldly hero who's been summoned to fight the Demon Lord. And he's just like, no.
I want my Sachan. We're supposed to die together.
Like, I want to find my girlfriend and commit suicide together, please and thank you.
His desire for suicide knows no bounds.
Yeah, to the point where he just eating sleeping pills like people would eat Tic Tacs by the handful. It's hilarious.
I'm sitting here going, you're eating those like Pez.
Yeah, and people are like, stop drinking poison. Just casually drinking poison like Coke. It becomes this thing to the point where I forget exactly what happens in the first episode. It's just so bonkers. But in addition to Annette, this elf who's supposed to be helping out the Otherworlders and is becoming rather disillusioned, the other party member they get right away is one of my beloved cat girls. Her name is Tama. And we should do voice actors.
Do some voice actors here.
Okay, so
our main character Sensei is voiced
just known as Sensei is voiced by Nicholas Markgraf, who's one of our relative newcomers who we always love to see. He was most notably Yuta Sano in Galaxy Next Door.
Another fun show.
Oh yeah.
Sachan is Aaron Lundquist. Pyron in the Apothecary Diaries, and Angela Ann Huel in The Witch and the Beast. I believe that was the main antagonist.
I honestly don't remember.
I don't either, so I could be wrong, but based on the picture on my anime, or not my anime list, on Behind the Voice Actors, that's who I think that is.
Okay.
Annette is the legendary Alexis Tipton, young Kafka Hibino in Kaiju number 8, and Kid Trunks in Dragon Ball Z Kai and Dragon Ball Super.
Yep, and she does an amazing job. So she's trying to be more or less dignified, but it doesn't work too well. So she's one of a small group of these high elf priests who are just mostly elves, who are responsible for bringing in otherworlders to defeat the Demon Lord and save the world, and that's a whole bag of rats that we'll get into in a minute. So Tama is in the clutches of this tree thing, the tentacles of this tree thing. So, cat girl tentacles, I'm happy. Not, but because it's trying to kill her, and so she's like, get me out of this thing, and he's like, why? And the thing grabs him and tries to suck his blood, and he's got so much poison in him it kills the thing.
Yeah, well, and his unusual attitude is what brings Annette to following him. She's just like, what do you mean you don't care? Why do you have no stats? What's going on?
Yeah, she's just horrified fascination at first, and Tama thinks she owes him a debt, which she is debatable, but anyway, she decides to follow him. And Tama is voiced by Rachel Thompson, who's Hiro in Goblin Slayer, and Irori Moriguchi in My Clueless First Friend. Does very well, very cute job, and the character's got quite some depth to her, as we'll learn later.
Indeed. Notably, Annette decides to quit her job to follow Sensei, or rather to drag Sensei, because he decides He's just gonna lay in a coffin.
And so
Dragon Quest
the
style.
two girls are literally just dragging him around, which
But
is just...
she puts in to quit her job, but it didn't quite work.
Yeah, it just...
They actually run into her superior, Isha, voiced by Madeline Norton, the older Gorgon sister in Tsukimichi, and Koto Tsukinoki in Makai Too Many Losing Heroines. Another relative newcomer, but you know what? Hey, she does a great job. And Isha is very surprised by Sensei, because he's not like other worlders. Because other worlders are kind of assholes, as it turns out.
Well, there's that, and they are defined by... But the transition process grants them, each of them, some ability or other.
Yes, they all get
Sensei,
powers.
to all appearances, has nothing.
Yep. He does not appear to have any real powers. No stats. He's just there and he wants to die.
Yeah, he's very gentlemanly, very pleasant, almost courtly, I would say.
Yeah,
But he has no interest in fighting anybody or doing anything except maybe occasionally penning something if he gets some inspiration.
He has his power is depression.
Pretty much depression and poison. So yeah,
and he can carry it over to anyone that deals with him.
Yep, it's just, oh god, and he has this way of just looking at somebody and smiling that's like the creepiest thing ever. It's hilarious. You've got to watch this show for the animation and the art.
Oh, yes.
The artists were having way too much fun with this.
Oh, absolutely. It is funny as all heck.
Yeah.
But Isha is most notably there because, well, the local town that they're visiting at that point is being taken over by a couple of otherworlder idiots.
Yeah, so they have killed the Demon Lord, just for the record.
Yes,
although his daughter's now on the warpath, but that's another whole subplot.
Yeah, and unfortunately we don't have the English voice actress for the Demon Lord's daughter, so...
Seriously? She's a pretty major character.
She is a very major character, but no, I could not get a list of that voice actress.
So yeah, Crunchyroll, get your shit together.
Seriously. You hire these amazing voice actors, make sure that we know who they are. Oh, gosh. But we have a pair of idiots in this town, Suzuki and Kotaro.
Yep.
Suzuki is voiced by Brandon Laura, who is Shinai in Tsukimichi and Spider in Vinland Season 2, or Vinland Saga Season 2. Another relative newcomer. And Kotaro is voiced by Tyson Reinhardt, Ragna in Re-Slime, and... I'm sorry. Ranga in Re-Slime. I can read. And Tanama in Natsume's Book of Friends, his best friend.
And a very skilled voice actor. It makes me want to punch the character so hard. Because this is like the terminally hip hop.
Oh, yeah, no, Kotaro is just like,
I'll take Suzuki over Kotaru any day. Really? I will take a straightforward murderous asshole. Oh, God. He's so much less annoying.
Huh, interesting.
Yeah. I will take someone who's more dangerous and less annoying any day of the week.
Of the three otherworlders, he's probably the one that annoys me the least.
Yeah. I think there's 7 in total, but we've only really met 3 of them so far. Because I think they're themed after the 7 deadly sins, so shout out to Full Metal Alchemist. No, it seems like we're going that route from what we've seen of, we'll get to that.
But yeah, Suzuki has power of mind control over people, and he uses it to his advantage to screw with people. Isha is actually taken back because she knew Suzuki when he first showed up, and he was kind, demure, quiet, and the power just kind of got to his head, and he turned quickly violent.
Yeah. They don't appear to have any sort of screening process for who they're pulling, so...
Well, and what's interesting about Suzuki, we do get a look at his background. This guy was bullied badly, and this appears to be his form of lashing out. The bully,
Right.
because he was bullied.
Yeah. Well, considering all 4 otherworlders we've seen, including Sensei, are vastly not qualified to
Yeah,
be.
no, I don't disagree with
it's
you.
It's like, could you possibly have picked worse people?
Well, I
and I
think
include Sensei in that.
their screening process is people who want to leave their world. Yeah, but you didn't ask the question why.
Yeah, no, that's. Of course, you're going to get the rejects.
Yeah.
Quite literally, you're going to get the rejects. People who have been rejected by this world one way or another.
And people who get taken by that zombie horde in Bye Bye Earth. Interesting that concept come up again.
Yeah, well.
But Suzuki's decided he is going to be the king, and you're going to follow his rules, and da-da-da-da-da, and he does manage to take over...
Standard power trip.
Yep, he does manage to take over Tama, unfortunately. Who gets knocked out, thrown in a trash can, and says, "Beware a beast."
Yeah, because she starts, at his command, starts attacking people, so they literally just, said they knock her out and put her in a trash.
It's the sign that gets me, is a "Beware a beast."
Yeah, well, it's not wrong.
It's not wrong, it's
Beware a
just
beast
funny.
girl, but yeah. Oh, God. So, yeah,
The long story short here is we find out what Sensei's power is when he comes across this guy. As it turns out, he was very interested.
Tell me about yourself. Yeah, tell me about yourself.
Yeah, apparently he's very interested by Suzuki, which is an interesting comparable to something that happens later. He actually does get interested in Suzuki's story, and he writes it down, and when it's done, he tells him that he is no longer allowed in this world. And warps Suzuki out back to Earth. Instead of bye-bye Earth, hi-hi Earth. Man, I'm making all the bye-bye Earth references today.
Of course, Isha and everybody else assume, this otherworlder has been sent to deliver us from the other otherworlders, and so now, Annette, it's your job to take him around and get rid of all the other pests.
Well, Anisha goes on to a King's Council where she makes sure to tell everyone all about it. It's like, oh, great.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Kotaro runs away screaming like what he is.
Yeah. Sensible, but undignified.
Mm-hmm. Which is why he doesn't annoy me as much, because he can't do. He's a little Me Too dog. He can't do much.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
He's dangerous when he's with someone else that's dangerous. That's the read I have on him.
So far, I would agree, but we'll see. I'm curious which. Did we get an answer as to which Sin Suzuki was?
Well, they didn't. This is your own concept. They didn't actually label any of that.
No, this is. I think our third one, Kaibara, didn't he say? Haven't they been saying like the 7 adventures or seven Sins adventures or something like that?
I don't remember that being a thing, but I could be wrong. I know where you're getting the idea from because our next one
it was following up that description, and then he starts. Well,
we'll get to him in a minute. Yeah. But also, I don't think that these two were part of the Great 7 Adventures. I think they were their own thing.
Okay, that's possible. Because it was... Yeah, the 7 Adventures are the ones who killed the Demon Lord, but...
Yes, the 7 Adventures are the ones who killed the Demon Lord, and they are also the 7 Fallen Angels, as they are referred to now by Isha and her group, because they turned against the world, and they're like, we're going to take it over. They're a lot more organized together than these two idiots were.
Okay, that's my confusion. All right. But
I still don't remember him mentioning the 7 doses, although I wouldn't put it past it.
Well, he describes himself as gluttony.
Well, given his power, yeah.
Right. So I'm guessing
that I definitely remember.
7 open limits to gluttony. If they don't do 7 deadly sins, I'll be very disappointed. Let's put it that way.
Well, before we get to him, after this storyline wraps up, we end up meeting a new kid named Nier, who is voiced by Rachel Glass, Silky in Angel Maker's Pride, Leo in One Piece, great voice actress. And Nier is like, hey, Do you want to find... I can hire an adventurer to help you guys out if you're new in town. He takes their money, and he was lying.
Yep. And apparently he's just kind of the local problem kid in the sense that, he's by himself, he's an orphan, and he's looking for some place to belong, really.
Yeah.
And I forget who it is who talks into it and basically guilts him into...
Well, he comes under attack by a bunch of nobody, otherworlders who try to be like, look at us, we're crazy otherworlders, and Sensei, does the Sensei thing. And depresses them, because that's what Sensei does.
Yes. Well, it's a...
It's
a power. It's kind of like if you remember Prince Phil in Slayers talking down the horde of escaped ghosts and basically giving them a self-actualization seminar. It's like that, but in reverse.
Yeah, basically. It's like a character in One Piece actually who has the power to make you depressed if you touch her magic ghosts. It's kind of like that. Although less direct, it's not so much touching you, so much as his charisma is such that he can carry his depression to you just by talking to you.
Yeah. Now there's a thought for an RPG character.
Oh my god.
We could build that in M&M.
I'm sure we could.
Okay, anyway. But, so, Nier decides he owes Sensei, and so basically he shows up saying, okay, I couldn't find anybody else at short notice, so I'm here to fulfill my contract with you. I'm going to be your expert. And it turns out he's surprisingly useful. He's not much of a fighter, but he's basically the party's rogue. And he's pretty good at it.
Indeed. Well, as we continue on, we end up going to the hometown of Tama. And are immediately arrested.
Of course.
Because it turns out Tama is a princess.
Yep, and it turns out Annette really needs to learn to have some dignity.
Well, yes. But yep. we quickly come across the king, who we do not have an English voice actor for. Thank you, Crunchyroll.
Yep, who is out of the classic Japanese patriarch
I'm
mold.
Actually incorrect. We do. So the king's name is Siberian, and he is voiced by Brian Mathis, who is Macau Conbolt in Fairy Tail, and Donan the Dwarf in Wistoria, Wand and Sword. He's also Raphael Hundorel in How to Love Your Elf Bride. So he's definitely a good voice actor.
Oh, yeah.
That was literally not there yesterday.
Oh. Okay, well.
But it's here now! I went to the place I went to find that, and there he is. So, yeah, no, Brian Mathis, thank you. You did a great job as Siberian, the king of the beast folk. And we learn a bit of a tragic backstory for Tama. She had a older brother named Leon, who we still don't have an English voice actor for. Thank you, Internet. Thank you, Crunchyroll. But Leon, who's supposed to be, the warrior, while she's supposed to be the princess, he passed away.
Yeah. And she decided, as children sometimes do, that, because they were pretty young, she decided that she needed to replace him.
Yeah.
And it didn't go so well, because her father is, he really does care, but he's not the type who knows how to show affection.
Yeah, so, I think that's a good read on him.
And so it eventually led to her running away from home, which is where she eventually met Sensei and everybody. And so we're just descending into some fairly delicious family drama when one Mr. Kaibara, an otherworlder voiced by Dave Trosco, who is Gosh Adalai in
Gauche.
Black Clover. Gauche, excuse me, Adalai in Black Clover, and Present Mike in My Hero Academia. Does a very good job with this disgusting character. Oh my god!
Oh my god!
Plays him very well.
Incredibly just hateable character. Oh my god!
Oh, yeah. Take Victor Zaz and cross him with Gluttony from Full Metal Alchemist, and you have this guy. So, if you know Victor Zaz's backstory from at least the Arkham Batman, I don't know about the comics. But, spoiled rich kid who just goes psycho because he has everything handed to him on a platter and just has no challenge, no nothing in his life, and literally starts going crazy. He's probably messed up in the head to begin with, but anyway.
Probably.
And then is given pretty much the powers of gluttony from Full Metal Alchemist.
A little bit more than that, because gluttony just eats people. He eats people and then gets their power.
Yeah. So,
which is honestly worse.
Yeah.
That makes it an incentive for him to be horrible.
Yeah, I won't repeat all the insanity he goes into, you can imagine.
God, he has quite the
lowest of the low.
Yeah.
And so there's all the drama with, the king trying to stand up to him, failing.
Tama trying to stand up to him, failing.
Yep, and so Sensei finally shows up and says, tell me about your life, and he tells him, and Sensei's, contrary to our expectations, Sensei is like, oh, you're boring.
You're boring, yep.
It dismisses him and starts talking to Tama and her backstory, and
that's you're missing.
The story.
He didn't ask Tama. He found a diary.
Oh, right. Her mother's diary, right?
Yes. And he read it.
And wrote the story based on that and some recollections of a few family retainers and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so this story, it turns out he can not only dismiss people back to Earth, but at least what he does for Tama is actually the story essentially empowers her and she's able to completely kick this guy's ass.
Yep. And nothing of value was lost.
Yep.
Of course, he gets beaten, but that's not how he dies. He dies because the demon princess, Waldalia, arrives and kills him for being one of the ones that killed and also ate part of her father to get his power. So he is not allowed in any world now.
Yep, good riddance to bad rubbish.
Good riddance to bad rubbish, I agree. Good golly, what a horrible person. And he gets exactly what he deserves. Oh my gosh.
Yep, and then some more family drama, and it quite naturally winds up with Tama rejoining the party.
And that is where we left off.
Indeed. So, I think we're about 2/3 of the way through the season now. We've had 7 episodes at this point. Very highly recommend. It's just it veers back and forth between some pretty decent drama and just some of the more creative silliness that I've seen in a while, I think is the best way to put it.
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah. Because if something like what was it? Astronaut was it was more like conventional anime bonkers. This is very creative, as I say, in original in the way it's kind of silly.
This season, we have several very creative shows between this and Bye Bye Earth, Delico's Nursery.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and of course Oshi no Ko. We got some really good stuff.
Yep.
I mean that's also Elusive Samurai is also very creative.
Indeed.
All things we may indeed talk about in the near future. But I think that's about all we can really say about No Longer Allowed Another World. Other than, hey, if you somehow listened to all this and you hadn't watched it yet, well, first of all, why? But second of all, go watch it. Because it's very good. It gets the Simuldub Saints seal of approval.
Indeed. All right, so let's pay the bills. This episode of Simuldub Saints has been prudently and efficiently sponsored by the FICSIT Corporation, humanity's only chance for survival against an unspecified but surely catastrophic imminent threat. Remember, FICSIT never issues recalls, since they guarantee all of their products for the lifetime of the product, or the user, whichever comes first. If you would like to join FICSIT's core of highly motivated and productive pioneers, apply today.
Ooh.
And this is, of course, the fictional evil corporation from the game Satisfactory, which this is... I'm not going to do a proper ad read because they haven't actually paid us. I've just been playing the shit out of it along with a lot of our friends.
Oh, yes.
It just released into 1.0. If you haven't heard about it, it's a factory game. It's really good. That's it. So
Yeah.
I'll wax lyrical for old games that are, cheap as chips, but for a modern product, I'm not going to get them free advertising more than that. But
Yep.
that's today's sponsor.
There you go. I mean, if we want to talk about games that I'm getting nuts into, it's a bunch of collections of the Marvel vs. Capcom variety and of the Castlevania variety.
Excellent. What is a nerd? A miserable pile of trivia.
Yes. So that's about the podcast. So, Ark, outside of Oscar Rogers Trash Can, where can the people find you?
Well, FICSIT has dropped me off on... They never did tell me the name of the planet, or... Actually, I think they did, but I've forgotten what it is. It was a lot of numbers. So basically, yeah, if you want to get a hold of me, you're really going to have to talk to LK.
Or post on
in the middle of
YouTube.
nowhere. Yep.
He actually sees them, so...
Yep, if you're quick, or LK will tell me if...
I will tell you if I see something, yes.
Yeah.
But yeah... As for myself, you can find me on Twitter at LaserKidPrime. You can find me on Blue Sky at LaserKid when I remembered I have one. And you can find me on the Toonami Faithful podcast alongside several of our recurring guests, Sketch and Kuro, who will definitely both be back at some point or another because I love having them here. And as for the Simuldub Saints, you can find us as a group together on at Simuldub Saints on Twitter. And we have a Facebook group, which is linked here on YouTube, or if you happen to be on Spotify, it's also linked on Spotify. Feel free to join. Whenever we update, I always post stuff there, and I do check them, so if you ever want to message us, you can post there as well. Well, that about does it for this week's episode of Simuldub Saints. So until next time, catch you later.
I'm an emo kid, non-conforming as can be. You be non-conforming too if you look just like me. I have paint on my nails and makeup on my face. I'm almost emo enough to start shaving my legs, cause I feel real deep when I'm dressing in drag. I call it freedom of expression, most just call me a fag. Cause our dudes look like chicks, and our chicks look like dykes. Cause emo is one step below transvestite. Stop my breathing and slit my throat. I must be emo, I don't jump around when I go to shows. I must be emo, I'm dark and sensitive with low self-esteem. The way I dress makes every day feel like Halloween. I have no real problems, but I like to make believe I stole my sister's mascara